Hi everybody, I'm Melissa and I'm going to show you how to sublimate a 20-ounce skinny tumbler from start to finish. So I already printed the designs that I'm going to be doing tonight. I printed them on 13 by 19, but they'll actually fit on 11 by 17. I just didn't have that paper. Or if you're just doing one, they'll fit on 8.5 by 11 also. So these are the two that we're doing. They're mirrored and they also have a slight warp. And I'll talk about that in just a minute and why that's important. There is not a lot of room when you're cutting. So you want to make sure you're cutting right on the line. And I'll show you that as well. These are both my designs and I'll link them in the comments on this video when we're done. So my 20-ounce cup comes in a box. Looks like this. And has a lid, which I'm just going to set to the side. Has a rubber base, which I'm going to set to the side. And you'll notice it's very slightly tapered, which is why it's important to warp. If you just use the template and chop it off, right, like use a clipping mask, you will not get a seamless when you wrap it. And let me show you what I mean by that. So I always start by wrapping it outside first, like this, so I make sure that my seam lines up. So you'll see here, when it's actually pressed, my seam lines up and you will not be able to tell where the seam is. So that's why it's important to warp. If you just use a clipping mask, depending on the design, it will cut it this way and you'll be able to see right where the seam is. So that's why you'll make sure you use it warped if you're doing a skinny that is tapered. Okay, so now that I make sure my seams line up good, I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping. So what I do is I usually set it down and make sure it's flush with the bottom. You can even pull it up just a little bit because you don't, right here where it dips down, you don't want. And then I usually start at the bottom, and this is, you got to pull it tight. And I'll show you some that I did when I first started and what I've learned along the way. Okay, so I'm going to get my tape and I'm going to put it here, but I'm not going to push it down yet because I want to make sure that I'm pushing from both sides to get it as tight as I possibly can, and then push it down. Okay, and then I'm going to go up again and do the same thing. I'm going to put my tape like that and then push, because you want to get that paper on as tight as possible so you don't have any air gaps or anything like that. And again, I also went ahead and started preheating my oven. I have an Osterge, just the cheapie from Walmart. I want to get one of the stand-up ones or the Dutch double door ones so I can stand them up, but this works just fine, you'll see. And I just have a silicone mat in there, so I'm just going to keep going up. Just like that. It's almost like I'm doing stitches, and then I'm going to run tape up also. And make sure the seam is the most important part. So again, and then push down. Make sure there's no gapping or anything like that. And I dropped it. That's okay. Okay, and I'm going to do one more at the top. Make sure it's really tight. Now I'm going to take my tape and run it up and down all along that seam. And I just wrap mine over to the bottom. Remember, our bottom is flush. Our top, we're going to have a little bit of overhang, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that next. Okay, so I'm looking, it's really tight. So now I'm going to take my scissors. I'm just going to run and cut that excess off all around the top. But be careful because you don't want to damage your cup at all. So do not go too close. Just cut that little bit of excess off. Just run your scissors along the top like that. And that's so you don't get any, there we go. All right, so just like that, it is all taped. Now what I do to make sure that I don't get any hot or cold spots at the top or bottom is I take a long piece of tape and I wrap it and I pull as tight as I can all along the top edge. I know some people don't, they feel like that gives them gaps, but I feel like it makes mine really tight and does not give me gaps. So it's what works for me. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing at the bottom. All right, and then we're gonna shrink wrap it. And I'm pulling my tape really tight because we want to make sure that it's really tight along the bottom. And once I get this in the oven, I'll show you why. I set my oven at just over 350. Mine runs a little bit hot. I don't have my thermometer in there, but it runs a little bit hot. So about 360 for 6 minutes, but I actually do 2 minutes and 45 seconds, turn it, and then 2 minutes and 45 seconds. That seems to be my sweet spot. You'll have to mess with that and see what is yours. But I would start there. Too hot and it'll burn, which I'll show you when I burn. Too cold and you'll get cold spots. So it's kind of an art to finding the right temp. Now, to get your tumbler in, I usually just put my hand in. And I usually start at the bottom because the bottom is a little bit thinner. All right, and you put your tumbler inside your shrink wrap. And then I picked up this heat gun at like Harbor Freight, I think it was. It was really cheap. You just start heating it. You don't want to go too close, not too far. Keep it moving. Sorry, I was out of camera. My husband's telling me, move up, move up. So I usually do the sides first, and then I'll do top and bottom. So you see, I'm just making sure there's no air pockets. All right, let me show you what that looks like. Okay. Nice and smooth. Now we're gonna put it in for 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So I just use the timer on my phone. So let me set that. Okay. And I just have a Teflon mat in there because it's what I had at my house. Okay, 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and then we'll flip it. So while we're doing that, let me show you some of my I had them all pulled out. Shoot. Well, I was trying to find the one that showed it better. This one actually turned out pretty good, but you can see one little white spot at the top. That's from an air gap. I had them, oh, I put them over here. Okay, so these were my messed up tumblers. So you'll see the top is all white. You can see my seam. This one, no seam or anything, but I burned it. See how my blacks turned brown and my teal turned green? This one's a burnt one. So those were my two mess ups. All right, so in 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I use tongs to turn it. We have about 1 minute left before we turn, so I'm gonna go ahead and start taping my next tumbler. I'm gonna get it out. Again, I'm just gonna set aside the, oh shoot, I was preheating it and didn't keep going, so that's just the timer on there. I usually set it for 30 or 45 minutes just so it doesn't shut off on me. All right, so I just set this to the side, this to the side. the lid to the side. All right, so here's our tumbler. Some people wipe them down with alcohol. These are clean, so I didn't, but you can, just to make sure there's nothing on it. Again, I'm going to make sure that my seams line up, make sure my template fits. And again, it does. So you're looking to make sure that that seam, when it lines up, you're not going to be able to tell where it comes together. Or if you can, it's minimal. Okay, so I don't think we have time to start wrapping this one. We're going to need to turn our tumbler. So if you stand yours up, you will not need to do this, but I just roll it. And I normally don't do this in my craft room. I usually do it out on my kitchen counter. But I don't have my webcam out there. So, all right, we're going to restart that. 2 minutes and 45 more seconds while we tape this one. So again, I'm just lining up, making sure my seams line up. And I'm going to start. And if you need to tape and then untape to get it tight, do that. You don't want to mess up tumblers. They are not a cheap blank, so make sure you get it right. And I use more tape than probably some, but I'd rather have it really tight and not have any issues than not use enough tape and ruin a blank. So and you want to make sure this is already taped down here, that you're not pushing this way and creating a bulge right here. So you want to get this as tight as you possibly can. Your hands will be tired afterwards. That was a kind of a long piece of tape there. Hold on. Okay, and I'm going to start taping right along that seam all the way up. Now it's really important too that you take the shrink wrap off right when it comes out. So as soon as that timer goes off, I'm going to stop doing whatever I'm doing and work on getting that off of there. Okay, so you'll see I have that little bit of, can you see that little bit of paper on the top? So again, I'm going to be very careful and just kind of run my scissors right around the top so that it's flush and even with the top of the cup. Because otherwise what happens is when you put the shrink wrap on, the shrink wrap shrinks around it and causes air bubbles, and those air bubbles will cause you cold spots at the top. And you don't want those. Okay, that looks good. Hopefully the next video I do, I will have, oh, see, there we go. All right, so we're gonna take it out, and I really should have a glove. I don't, so let's turn that off. All right, so I'm going to clip the top right here. These ones have a little tear line, but you'll notice they don't always, yeah, they don't usually tear on that tear line. So just keep trying to get it going. You want to especially get it off the bottom fast. That's where it tends to stick, if it's going to stick. All right, there. It's tearing on the line now, or bigger chunks anyways. And if you need to get your scissors under there, just be really careful you don't scratch the cup. You don't want to scratch the finish. So I use my tongs. If I'm not talking, usually I have one in there cooking while I'm doing this, and it makes the process a lot faster. We're almost there, and they cool down pretty fast, but they're really hot when you first. There we go. Last little bit there. All right, so that's all off. Still pretty hot, so I take the top and bottom off, because remember that was the tape I did last. It's hard to find sometimes the start of that. Okay. Then I went up and down. Okay, and now we can just peel all the way up and down. And reveal how we did here. I'll show you some cool accessories that make all the difference when you go to list and sell them too. All right, and there it is. There's my seam. You cannot even tell or see it. So pretty. So I will show, first I thought that was a hot spot. It's not. It's part of the design. It's one of the little flying dandelions. Let's see if we can try to find the seam. I think that's it right there. But it'd really hard to find it. Okay, so let's finish taping our next one and then I will show you a little bit more on that one. All right, so we left off, we were going to tape top and bottom. So here I've got my long piece of tape. And again, I'm going to pull tight as I go around, like pulling the tape so that it's really, really tight on there so that we don't have any gapping. Okay, and then same thing at the bottom. That's where most people have the most problem, is their tops and bottoms. And it's because they're not tight enough, or they left the overlap off the bottom or off the top, and when they put their shrink wrap on, then it created an air pocket, and you don't want that. Okay, so now we're ready to wrap it. Again, I usually start at the bottom because it's just easier, because it's a little bit smaller. Okay, and then my heat gun. Just move it. If you hold it in one spot too long, it will burn the shrink wrap, so don't do that. Just want to smooth it out, get all the bubbles out. Now you can see here there's still some bubbles, so I just want to make sure it's completely smooth so I don't have any. I forgot the piece of tape. So you can see on this one how you can see like a ridge right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's hard to see in the thing, but that's just from where a piece of my tape folded over, so that's fine. But if you notice that you have a bunch of ridges at the top or bottom, that means your paper was not tight enough. Cut off your wrap. Yes, you ruined a wrap, but it's better than ruining a tumbler. Cut it off and retape. So if you see any big gapping or like crinkles at the top or bottom, that means it's not going to be flush enough. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this in. 2 minutes, 45 seconds. My table in here is not level, and so this wants to keep rolling. I don't want it to roll. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start my timer. 2 minutes and 45 seconds. There we go. All right, so one of my favorite accessories is this. It's a little turntable. Let's see if I can. I don't need my heat gun anymore, so I'll actually plug it in right here. Let me just unplug my, like I said, I'm not usually using extension cords. It's just that I normally am doing it in my kitchen where I have a little bit more room. Okay, so here is my beautiful tumbler I just made. Here is the rubber bottom, so I'm going to peel that off and stick it right on the bottom. And it just says, do not put it close to a fire, dishwasher only, or no dishwasher, hand wash only. There it is. And I use this, and normally I have a pretty background set up. I usually use one of Marvin's boards here. And it spins, and I take a video and I post it in my group. And it shows the tumbler all the way around. And like I said, usually I have one of my boards that I got from Driven by Graphics from Marvin behind it, and one on the ground, and I record it, and of course it would be closer. But I picked that little turner up on Amazon. I want to say it was like $16 or $17, but it's definitely worth the investment because people can see the tumbler all the way around. So here it is, and then I just repackage it in the plastic bag, put it back in the box, and it's ready to go. Attach your straw. All right, so we have one more that we're going to be turning here in just a second. We have 20 seconds. Now, I really need to also get some heat gloves because I think that would make it a lot easier than using tongs, but I just don't have them and I haven't had a chance to go get them, so I use what I have. But if you're just buying stuff, get heat gloves. You will also need tongs, but heat gloves would be even better. It would be a nice addition, I should say. Okay, so I'm just going to roll this, put it back in. 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Now this design that we're doing is one of my new designs. I don't even have it listed yet, so I'll get it up and listed. But it's got kind of a rust, a teal metal, and a yellow like rustic metal background with some cotton and rose floral down here. And then it's got Polaroids. So you just drop you bring this into your program, whatever you're using to print or design from, and then you add the photo layers below and size it. I get asked that a lot on my photo ones. How do you get the pictures in there to get a perfect square? You don't need them a perfect square. If you put it in the layer behind, this is transparent and it shows through. And then you can just size it. And then you can add, I added the word family here. It comes blank. You could add friends. You could add, you know, fun, whatever you wanted to add. And then you can even caption each picture if you wanted to. So, kind of like I did on this family one I messed up. Same thing, but this is a cork board. I put little captions underneath each picture. They're really, really fun to make. My customers love them. And as soon as I post one for sale, I usually get a lot of orders. So post them up, post them for sale. They show much better when you actually show them made. So make yourself one or two of your favorite designs, show them on a turner, and post them up, and then you can show more mock-ups. But that way people can actually see the tumbler. All right, let's see. How much longer do we have? 1 minute. Normally in a live, I'd ask you if you have any questions, but we're not live, so let me see, what other ones have I done I can show. Here's another one that has a glitter top and bottom. It says "Suck It Up, Buttercup." But this one you can't see the seam either. I have no idea where it's at. Oh, it looks like maybe right here. You can kind of see. But that's the goal. You want to get where you don't see your seam. So, and if you're designing your own, you want to make sure that you use papers or graphics that line up together and that are the same coloring so that you get that seamless look. All right, so we're going to be taking this one out in just a minute, and then I will show you it and we'll be all done. That's how you sublimate a 20-ounce skinny tumbler. If you have any questions, you can drop them below the video. There we go. And I will respond. All right, again, we're going to try and get this off as quickly as possible. So I like to cut right along that perforated line. Sometimes I can get it going. Nope, I'll try it on the bottom. Nope. All right, so remember, it's really, really hot. Don't burn yourself. And don't scratch your cup if you need to. There we go. Ah, I almost had it going. Oopsie. They're pretty hardy. You can't really, maybe dropped it on tile or something, it would probably break, but, or chip, I should say. There we go. Alright, so that's off. Now remember, I did my top and bottom seams last, so I'm going to peel them first. Only because they go over top of all the other tape. Okay. I have not pressed this design yet. This is one's brand new. I had not pressed the Just Breathe one either. They were both brand new. Just for tonight. Just for this video. My oven is pretty old. You can hear it making all kinds of noises. Okay, I'm going to pull these ones off next. Okay, now we can just go up or down the cup for the rest of them. All right. Oops, I reset it instead of turned it off. Look at that. It's beautiful. The colors are gorgeous. Let's see our seam. How'd we do? Nope, can't even see it. That's what you want. You don't want a white line. You don't want to be able to see that seam at all. Alright, so let me show you what it looks like all finished here. And that's what else I check usually is top and bottom. No white. Looks beautiful. And let me start this for you. And here I'll even let's see if I can pull you a little closer here. There it is. That's how you sublimate a 20-ounce skinny tumbler. All right, guys, I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me.